Okay.
All right, let's bring in federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani. Good morning to you, Neama.
Good morning. Thanks
for
having me.
Thank you for coming on. First of all, how will this affect, in your opinion, the election? Or is America just tired of this and they get caught up in the weeds, no one really knows what this means?
I don't think it's going to affect the election at all. This is more of the same, just a slightly more narrow indictment because Smith's trying to fit it within the Supreme Court's majority opinion in the immunity case. Really, the evidence that we're talking about came out during the January 6th hearing, the impeachment proceedings in Congress, and that first indictment. But because of the Supreme Court's decision, Jack Smith actually had to remove some of the allegations in the indictment, including some of those against former Justice Department official Jeffrey Clark. Take those out because the Supreme Court made it clear that those communications with the DOJ, those are official acts and therefore subject to immunity.
So the grand jury looked at this and said, yeah, we have to indict him on this. So then it goes up. What is the exact next step? What kind of timing are we looking at?
Well, we know a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich, so the fact that Smith got an indictment isn't surprising. None of this was going to happen before the election anyway. Now that we have a superseding indictment and an arraignment, the former president isn't going to likely have to appear in court to plead not guilty to this new indictment. This is going to push everything back well past the election. And we know the wheels of justice are slow, but they're even slower when we're dealing with novel legal issues like this that will certainly be litigated again to the Court of Appeal and to the Supreme Court.
Right. And Neama, the timing shouldn't surprise us because both sides, Trump's side and Jack Smith's side, were supposed to submit papers by Friday that explained how this case would be impacted by the Supreme Court's decision regarding presidents have broad immunity when it comes to official acts.
Well, that's right. And the justices, even though they ruled that there is some immunity, they didn't really draw clear lines. They did with respect to those Department of Justice communications. But that was it. And the challenge here is there is immunity for official acts. So what are official acts? Well, we know if the former president is acting as the chief enforcer of our nation's laws, including our election laws, that is subject to immunity. But if he's campaigning, those are private acts and is not. So where is the line drawn? And the justices, even the conservative justices in the Supreme Court, they didn't draw that line. They kicked the can down the road. They remanded or punted the case back to the trial court and Judge Chutkan to make that decision.
So, Neama, I'm just curious, is this fall within the Department of Justice standards for not interfering with an election, not bringing charges? I know some of the wheels in motion had already been years ago, but considering everything was kind of like at a pause at least, does this go against their standards?
Well, the Department of Justice does have an informal 60-day rule. They're not supposed to file charges within that period before an election because it may affect an election. Now, in this case, obviously, the case was pending. It was stayed or put on hold while the case was appealed. And ultimately, when it came back down from the Supreme Court, the judge needed to restart the case. And even though the superseding indictment has been filed, Trump's lawyers will almost certainly file another motion to dismiss. And this was more of a defensive maneuver by Smith to try to avoid getting that case dismissed. So we're a little bit more than 60 days out from the election, but technically, under the DOJ policies, this doesn't violate their guidelines.
All right, Neama, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Let's talk to you about